Hello everyone, it's Zellerant here, and for today's video on Umamusume, as the Virgo Cup pre-registrations have started, hopefully you're at this point starting to finish up your aces. I know we've had a limited amount of time, especially a lot of people like myself who had to rebuild parents because our entire plans changed with the skill updates. But at this point, hopefully you're going to be able to start working on parents and grandparents going into the Libra Cup once you finish up those aces, and so that's what I want to kind of talk about today. Now, the nice thing is we're not going to have massive skill changes coming again to kind of throw a wrench in your plans. And also, nice thing about Libra Cup is it is basically a repeat of the Gemini Cup, other than it is 200 meters shorter, and instead of Spring Runner, it's going to be Fall Runner. So you should hopefully at this point have a good starting point for building parents and grandparents. You might be able to just rework your original grandparents to build your new Umas. The biggest thing would be Fall Runner. If you're really trying to min-max and get both Fall Runner as well as right-handed on them, that might be a little tricky if you've built a lot of Fall Runner into your, or you originally built a lot of Spring Runner into your parents and grandparents. But the nice thing is Fall Runner is a little bit easier to access if you actually look at the skills. Let's see here. So now I have it on the Japanese version. That's going to show a million different things. But Fall Runner here, you have McQueen, again, of course, with Spring Runner. If you need to rebuild, you can use her to have instant access to it as a parent to try and get it on her. Or you can use the Fine Motion Wit card. That'll be a little tricky for some people, but she is still going to be very, very strong here because she has right-handed and Fall Runner. But worst case, you don't have it, and you're going to want to use Machikani Fukukataru anyway, which has easier access to right-handed just for that link match if you're going to use a single wit card, which I advise that you do. So that's the big change there. But then other than that, it's mostly the same, and we can kind of see that with the racetrack here. And as you can see, I have the 3001 here, and we have the 3200 here. So if we look at the all laps here, the big difference is on Gemini Cup, we started back here. And now on Libra Cup, we're starting right here. That's the difference. Now, this changes a couple things in it. One of them being Gold Ship, which was one of the most popular Umas for Gemini Cup and strongest, won the most races from what we've seen, is her Go Home Specialist skill. And so if you actually look at it, Go Home Specialist works on an uphill, and it has an accumulation time of greater than or equal to 10 seconds to activate. Kind of look at here at the number of seconds before the race, since the race has started. Now, the Gemini Cup, we started back here, and so if you remember, it was always activating on this uphill right here because enough time has gone by. And this was not, it gave you energy back, but it wasn't the most efficient because you, in a lot of cases, hadn't burnt enough energy to fully utilize it. Generally, it was still plenty enough alongside Swinging Maestro, which you're going to have built in. On this one, we are much closer to these uphills. So from what I understand in that, it's not going to activate here, but instead, when we come back, we're going to wrap around into the second lap here, and I would expect it to actually activate on these uphills. And so, should be a lot healthier in stamina, at least from that skill. And so we have that change. But the other thing is the lap. Oh, I went too far up. The lap 2. Where do we start the late race? And it's effectively the same. It's a 67 meter difference. So this one's going to be starting right here. Or started right here on this uphill going into it. This one's right after. But that's not that much. I could say that it weakens the end closer slightly on straightaway spurt. I say slightly because it's only a 67 meter distance, and they still have 1,000 meters to overtake and win. And I feel like they're still going to be very strong here. But now, everybody else has options. And so they're not going to, while I still think they're going to be strongest, they're not going to be dominating like they did Gemini Cup, especially with No Stopping Me being easy access in the Unity Cup. And unlike right now with Virgo Cup, where when you want No Stopping Me to activate, that's when all the Umas have pretty much already started to spread out, and thus it's going to be harder to activate. That's going to be a different case here. They're not going to spread out until later down into the late, a lot later into the late race here, and thus more likely to be able to trigger it right when you want to, and thus everyone, except front runners in that case, has access to a 0.4 Excel. And so that can be very, very strong. Although with Narita Taishin having that 0.4 Encroaching Shadow alongside No Stopping Me can be a 0.8 Excel if everything triggers correctly. And she can just zoom. Gold Chip with Straightaway Spurt, same thing except it'd be 0.6 or any end closer. But then you also have Pace Chasers. I mean, you have No Stopping Me, but then you also have Heads, I think it's Heads On or Heads Up. And that one can pop fairly, it's fairly gamble, but it can pop kind of a right timing alongside No Stopping Me. You have Late Surgers on your left and those kind of options. Still a lot more gambly because of how open these ranges are. So while everybody has options now, it still looks like your end closers will be the strongest, at least for this race. Now, another thing I kind of forgot to mention here when I'm kind of talking about Narita Taishin, from what I understand with the skill changes, Sleeping Lion is actually going to be useful on her now, because while it's still the same skill where it wants her to be the back to trigger it, from what I understand, the Urara strat of having her going all the way to the back to kill Sleeping Lion will no longer work. It doesn't prevent its activation. Like, there's a new mechanic in there that says if an Uma's super far back, they do not count for that trigger when it comes to 70% between the last place and first place, or whatever the numbers are. So Sleeping Lion will actually be a pretty good gamble skill there. Now we also have the massive difference here now that we have Rico to give us stamina. And so this is going to be an opportunity to have a lot higher power. Now, in Gemini Cup, you probably already experienced some crazy people who built really strong gold ships that had 1200 speed and close to, or if not, 1200 power, and they were beasts. There were very few and far between still. That is not going to be the case here, because with Rico being able to cover us with stamina, as well as having Rice Shower to give Swinging Maestro as a power card, and if you built your sparks correctly, I think from what I've seen, a lot of people are advising 9 power, 9 stamina here. That should cover you on not only getting your stamina, but also getting a ton of power. And if you use Rice Shower power alongside another power card to hit power to give you your additional stamina needed, that can be very, very strong and get you to that 1200 power that you want. Now, it depends on the person. My strategy is going to be a little bit different there, and I'll be going more into depth on different strategies as I start building aces, because, I mean, it's going to need a lot of testing just because Libra Cup for the Japanese version did not have the skill changes that we currently have. But I'm trying a little something with, like, Narita Taishin, for example, who has 20% guts, where I'm going full power sparks. So I won't have 18 because I'm not lucky enough to get 3 power sparks in my main parents, but it'll probably be around that 15 to 16-ish range. And I'm hoping with that, I can then actually use stamina cards instead of power. Because she already has Sleeping Lion built in, I'll use my Super Creek for Swinging Maestro, and then I'll use something like Tamamo Cross as another stamina card and hit stamina. Hitting stamina will be good for her since she has a 20% bonus to guts, so she can actually get a lot more guts up to take advantage of the new guts mechanics, which can be useful. Not going to be a main target. You definitely don't want to do a guts build, but having that additional like 2 or even 800 guts competing against other people that might only have left 4 or 600 can be what wins you the race in the long run. But that's going to need a lot of testing. But that's going to be it now, talking about Libra Cup. I just wanted to make a kind of short introduction so people can start kind of thinking about what aces they want to build and then what Umas they need to build for their parents and grandparents. I will be making more in-depth videos on different Umas that are going to be strong, that I think will be good, what parents and grandparents you should build, as well as ultimates and all that in a little bit here. Probably as we get into Virgo Cup finishing that's when I'll start focusing on those videos. But that'll be it for now. And if you like my content, if you could like, comment, and subscribe, it really helps. And thanks for watching.